and also the multi-amp thing that you want to discuss about, and the sounds and everything. So it's up to you.
Okay.
You just tell me, you know.
Yeah. Well, kind of. Yeah, I had a couple things in mind, maybe that were maybe different than I said the
Uh-huh.
last time, but um, I wanted to, and let me know if I need to. Probably need to readjust this, right, so you can see this. Let's see how this gonna work.
Work.
You,
Well, it works.
okay, it worked. Is that loud enough? Can you hear? Or
Yeah, you can hear this.
yeah.
All right. Works.
Um, so I'm trying to piece a lot of like different things together. I'm still trying to get enough tools under my belt so that I can play more fluid, have better phrasing. I love the phrasing that you do. The Andy Timmons, the Petrucci combination. It's just like it for me. I love that kind of style.
Sure.
So anything with helping with phrasing, and maybe I was thinking about maybe just having like a simple passage like chord progression, and
Mhm.
how you would go after that progression, some of the places of the neck that you like to hit, and then maybe that's something I can work into my playing more, expand the vocabulary and things like that, and then so that would be like big part of what I think I can get from this kind of lesson is just that improv
Yeah,
component of that, and
but
then yeah,
mostly phrasing,
yeah, so
phrasing, and finding the they call the right notes.
yes, because I
Okay.
mean, when I listen to your playing, it just is it's so emotional. I mean, even the kind of very simple passages you play, they really hit like deep inside, and something about that. I mean, it's I'm sure you're thinking through all that, but what makes that sound so emotional versus just kind of playing through maybe a same pattern or something, but it's those players like Annie yourself that just really you're playing kind of towards the progression.
Uh-huh.
So something like that would I think would go a long way in terms of my playing, right?
Sure.
And then maybe something in terms of like even like alternate picking exercises, maybe like picking like a mode or something, just like a Mixolydian, scale or something like that, where I can kind of really try to hone that craft, get these two things in sync. Something maybe some guidance there would be really
Cool.
helpful, I think.
Cool.
I mean, I think that's kind of the I got tons of questions on tone and stuff like that, but I could have another lesson for that if we run out of time,
Okay.
and we could work on the multi amp. I don't have the multi amp here. I'm playing out of this Steve Stevens rig here.
Oh,
Yeah, so it's a
it's a
nice rig. It's a little
little amp.
yeah, a little tiny amp like this with a 412 cabinet in my living room here.
Nice.
And
Good for
so,
you.
but I do have the multi amp. It was just buried, and I said, I'm just gonna pull out the big one for now, and then we'll see how it goes.
It's
but
good for keyboard.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But
Uh,
just that kind
multi
of thing. Yeah.
this is the multi-amp sound.
Oh, so you're running the multi amp right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just through the cab, so it's not loud in the camera,
Uh
but
huh. Uh huh.
I think you can hear that. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's the multi-amp. Anyway, all right. So phrasing. Well, first of all, the first thing that so I like the question that you just made. So, how do you think about creating a melody and how I develop from there and start building a solo. It's all a matter of usually it's all a matter of first of all when I start playing over any chord or any progression, the first thing that I do is that I give a spin to the whole thing to see what the chords are and the possible scales that I can use over, and but more in the terms of sounds than watching and playing, by eye watching the neck. It's more about in terms of hearing what's the possible melody or the possible scales or the possible effect of that particular note over a chord or more notes over a chord.
Right. Yeah.
So it's more about a first step of listening the whole thing. If it's one chord, of course, it's easier. When it's more chords, it starts getting more into the where the magic happens. So I start thinking more about the possible relation between notes and everything. But the first real thing that I do, especially if it's a tonal song, it's not modal or anything that requires playing over separate chords. So if it's a tonal song, the first thing that I do is trying to make it sound less basic as possible. So to do that, when I'm improvising, I tend to stay away from the root. For example, I tend to stay away from playing and starting over the root of the chord. So if I have a melody, if I have a chord progressions that goes like C major, G, F, like this, for example, for 99% of the times, I won't start on the C note to create the melody. So I will never go from here and point out every root note of the chords that I'm playing over. So I will never play D, except the root notes. But for a reason is that, the very first thing that I do when I play over this kind of, chords is to put myself in third person. So what will I hear if I was in the listening position from my ears? That's the questions that I pose to myself. So what I would like to hear if it was Annie Timmons playing and I was listening, but I'm actually playing. So it's like two personalities coming out and trying to make it play. But it's just a matter of starting and trying to play the real first notes, and then everything comes. So the first thing that I do, I avoid like hell the root note each chord.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a sort of automation now.
Yeah.
It's sort of got automated in my brain. So if I have these chords, or even I won't play, because that points out a very definite melody on the bass notes, and that doesn't give you the idea of what really you can come up with heart, with melody, with feel, and etc. So I usually, when it's that easy chords wise, I may use different notes like the third to begin a melody conversation. Like I may start with so if I have I will start with the E, so with the third on C, and go for thirds. So it's gonna be E on the C, it's gonna be F on the D, and it's gonna be D on the B flat. But that just by doing that, you create a sort of basic melody that starting from that, I start build on the notes and what I feel inside.
Well, automatically when you play those three notes, the ones that you chose to start off, I can actually see the movement. I mean, it's so much more dynamic.
Okay. Yeah,
like I'm hearing that Mixolydian thing come out, or
Exactly, and in my brain, it just turns on a different part of brain. Melody. It's the melody side. So starting from those notes, the next step is, taking for granted that I want to hear what I would like to hear. I start to to see if there's a existing melody that I could rely on, or something that someone before me wrote that can help me build that melody, or something that I wrote before that. So that sort of trademark,
Right.
anything that can be recognizable, or just
Yeah.
Sfoglish in a way.
Yeah.
So if there's anything, I'll try taking the vibe, and that happens. The beauty of it is that happens while playing. So it's all these things just happens in a matter of seconds, because it's while playing. I'm just improvising. I'm just taking the situation of improvising over some chords. So I start thinking about all these things, and then just the notes happens basing on the scales then. And one of the first things that I do after that is scrambling the notes of the scale, because one of the worst things one can do is over a chord playing the ascending and descending notes of a scale. So if I'm over C, the worst thing one can do is playing a melody following the ascending C scale. Or in case of, so I'm playing the Mixolydian C scale, or if I want to give you the exact minor sound, I'll play the D minor, the D minor, straight D minor scale. So the first step for me, improvising wise, is scrambling the notes over the scale and see if there's a melody coming from alternating notes inside the scale. So it can be so instead of playing, I kind of visualize the notes in the shape of the scale, and just scramble the intervals. So playing the notes, but just in a random way.
Okay. Yeah.
But that just happens, to find maybe an inspiration for melody.
Yeah.
But since the whole usually the whole composition process starts with a melody. So this is if I have chords and I have to play a melody over. But 99% of the times, everything starts from a melody.
Okay, so like when you're composing your tunes, you already have this melody in mind,
Yeah.
and then you're like, then you go back and craft the rhythm behind it.
99% I have a few notes that makes a melody, or like a draft of a melody, something that can be addressed as a melody. So, for example, I couldn't have written "Nothing Is Lost" if I didn't have this. So that's what actually built the whole song. Or for Andromeda, for example, I had this. So I had this melody in my mind. Well, maybe it wasn't the whole thing. It was just notes like. That eventually went in building the whole thing from. So I started. That's just like an example, because Andromeda started from the ending, and then I built the whole song from that ending melody. But for Nothing Is Lost, for example, I had this melody in my mind that was just pure and built from the scratch. So it was. So based on that, I started building the chords. So instead of and when I build chords, it's that's where I try to pay attention more, because a wrong chord or a wrong triad make it sound really basic or really interesting.
So just even turning to the key that you chose, like this, having this
G sharp minor.
G sharp. I mean, was that something like conscious? Like, I want to do this out of like the standard E, F, G. I mean,
well, I think probably because I started when I work, I tend to write down as soon as I have a melody, or I try to sing over a phone or anything, and I tend to give that key throughout the song. So it's very rare that I change a key when I start working on
Yeah.
that key. So that melody
Okay.
came in G sharp already
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
from
It was already
Carolina.
in there. Yeah.
So I had this. So the whole song was either B major, because the chorus is B major, or
Yeah.
the whole verse is in G sharp minor. So, and I had the possibility of using regular chords like flat G sharp minor, flat E major, flat F sharp, flat B major, and maybe going back to F sharp. So that's where I started using inversions, or just chords with the bass, the bass, the slash, slash
The
different
slash. Yeah.
bass. So that's where I prefer going over G sharp minor 9 at 9, which is the it's kind of one major will play like this, but in minor. Yeah, that one. So it's a bar A, and you play G sharp, D sharp, and A sharp, and the whole thing. Instead of using the standard E major, I use the E major at the seventh fret by using it like major 7. So based on the melody, because if you play the whole chords, those chords already imply melody. So they have moving the major 7. Instead of going to F sharp major, I use the F sharp with the 11th. So it's an added 4th. It's like a B major with the 4th, with the E, and then instead of going to F sharp again, I decided to go over a F sharp, but with the A sharp bass. Yeah, which sounds more,
Like a journey kind of.
Yeah, it's
Something. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. The mother father thing. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Wow. So it sounds more dramatic actually to go back from the A sharp on bass to G sharp minor.
So you would kind
Instead of going.
already set this beautiful palette with like a lot of these ninths and seventies,
Yeah.
these kind of notes that kind of imply a nice, beautiful melody on the top of that, right?
Exactly. Well, the idea was to make it. I had a reference because, like everyone, I had a reference kind of sound that I wanted to get, and the reference sound was Toto. And to have that sound, it couldn't be basic. It couldn't be, because it just doesn't sound like that. So
Yep.
we wanted to be really, Steve Lukather vibey. So I really wanted to make it, but with an Andy Timmons phrasing. So I really wanted to blend those worlds. And the first part, I took inspiration for the verse and the intro from A Night to Remember as a vibe. And for the chorus, it's totally, Toto, because it's. So for those, I had those two inspiration corner albums and bands. So I really wanted to be like Andy meets Luther of the early days.
Yeah.
That drove me to the chords and the vibe and the drum patterns, and because it happens that even the drum patterns changes the whole vibe of a song, so it drives you to play different chords. So I really had that kind of 80s Toto.
Okay. Yeah.
Of course, and that drove me to play the chords in a certain way to fill it with the piano and have a different arrangement for the whole thing. So as far as melody goes, um, I really need to have a melody in my mind before starting. So wherever I go, wherever I am, I really need, to be with my cellular phone and have it, recorded, ready to, because I've lost so many melodies over the years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
just happens, you're in the traffic, stuck in the traffic, and waiting to get out of the rush hour, and the melody just happens, and you need to record it. So every time I'm driving or I'm stuck, anyway, I need a cellular phone or anything
Yeah.
to record
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
use the
Yeah.
melodies,
Yeah. Yeah. It's gone after
and
that.
everything starts from. I mean, probably 9 songs out of 10. Um, were born that way. So starting from a melody,
Okay.
there are exceptions. Songs that maybe were written from the drums pattern, or just I had a knot time signature that I was messing with, and I really want to create something proggier. Like Genius was born from a drums pattern. I really wanted to make it weird, but songs like Nothing Is Lost, Heartburn, All the Ballads, Andromeda, Still Hurts. Those were born from one of the melodies that you can hear inside the song. So Harbor was born by so I had that thing. So I had that melody. So I started with the chords, and the possibilities are endless because you can use pretty much
So
whatever
yeah.
inside a
Right.
key.
Now, even to break up like the things that you like your personality is like you use a lot of like the almost like a you know
Yeah, that comes
that kind
from
of like almost like a pedal thing like you do like
like
I mean that's very signature of you and
because that comes
yeah
I think that comes from
yeah
because getting into the note with a slide.
uh-huh
So and to but even group of slides like so getting to the note with a slide. So
yeah
that's
that's an
something
Andy
that
thing yeah
yeah comes from probably listening Andy over and
yeah
over.
yeah
I just absorbed that
yeah uh-huh
vibe.
uh-huh uh-huh
It eventually happened, getting into my daily playing, just by absorbing it, because I think I never really practiced these things over.
mhm
So I
mhm
never really sat down and said, okay, I'm gonna make my notes, uh, sounding better, or just getting
mhm
a slide between playing before playing a note.
right
But that just came naturally and came by listening. Everyone is like a hero or
mhm
several
yeah
heroes.
yeah
So by putting that, this tricks, let's call them tricks, or just um, part of the touch on the instrument and the technique of several other guitar players that just built over the years the I think the voice on instruments, but it just came by listening a lot of different players, because it's not just rock stuff. It's even prog players, or bluesier players. Usually, uh, maybe blues players with a jazz attitude, like Steve Lukather, or Eric Johnson.
yeah yeah
But listening to all these players maybe contributed, infusing something in my playing, uh, by subconscious, not really getting over it and practicing it, just by listening to them to the stuff that I was really interested about,
mhm
and it just came inside the playing at some
right
point.
yeah no it's
So, yeah, it's more of a it's like when you can learn about driving a car, and but at some point it just comes naturally, because it's sort of an automation thing, and which is like walking or whatever, or automated thing. So for me, it was getting these things into my playing. But even before Andy, was Joe Satriani,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
he really and heavily influenced my playing by. And what's funny is that I just posted something about memories and just a small
yeah,
clip I played, and a guy wrote me and it says something like this. It was like when you play these things, it's not like listening someone playing the thing. It's like listening to original record.
yeah,
It's like listening, all those inflections in the playing that you can just. I mean, if you go to Joe's show and you won't play that like it was on the record
yeah,
because it's just a matter of the feel, the moment.
yeah.
So it's just a melody, and then you build your own thing on the moment.
Hmm.
But the cool thing that that guy told me was like it's when you play these things, or just when I played the surrounded thing on YouTube. It was like hearing the actual record and the exact same inflections and vibrato and vibe and bands. And I was thinking about this because I was just, gosh, how's that possible? I mean, we're different persons,
Hmm.
and he
Sure.
he wrote the song.
Yeah.
So how's that possible that someone get the same exact vibe as it's on the record?
Hmm.
And it's like a 30 years old record.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
and I came to the conclusion that I learned that stuff without playing it, just by listening. And maybe the things that really, catch me in a way are those things that I replicate exactly like on. So if it's not that, if it's not this line, and I will
Yeah,
play,
yeah.
it just doesn't sound the same. So that really hit me, and
Yeah.
that's what I tend to absorb. Those things I tend to
But I think,
absorb.
yeah, I think there's a lot to that. I also think your playing has so much conviction with every note that you play. It comes, it
Thanks.
means something, right? I mean, that's what Satriani's playing was. It came from the heart, and it's kind of the same thing that gets translated. You have that kind of emotive style that the listener kind of, I mean, it brings me in every time.
Okay,
So
well,
maybe there's,
that's a
yeah,
cool compliment, and I
yeah,
and I
yeah,
appreciate, man, because I prefer, and I appreciate these compliments more than I'm, astonished about how many notes you can pull out in a
yeah,
bar.
yeah,
That
yeah,
really means a lot for me.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean,
So, because I've worked a lot on
yeah,
that. I
yeah,
worked
yeah, yeah,
a lot on, creating my own
yeah,
voice, besides, the
yeah,
technical
yeah,
stuff, which
yeah,
sport,
yeah.
technique is just like the more you practice over, the more you get, fast. It's
So
just
yeah, if I play a progression for you, just something simple, right? And then I want to kind of go into the mind of how you break this down. I mean, you're thinking just all these things that you described over the last 20
all
minutes,
right.
um, like so something simple like that, right? You're probably
Yeah,
think like the first thing that goes to your mind. What are you thinking that?
I will have just or no. So I
Yeah,
just had, the melody starting from the third.
yeah,
Then it was like, what was the second chord? A.
yeah,
Then I will build something like this, starting from the third, and then pointing out some melodies over the A chord
but
on the G.
yeah. So, but
Yeah,
but like for my novice playing, I mean, I'm thinking like
that's correct. difference is, in my case, I try to steer away from the scale.
Okay, yeah. So that's what I'm trying to get out. I mean, I'm still trying to learn the pattern, and so I do
Exactly. So
this kind of thing.
exactly. So I take the scale as a sound in my mind,
Yeah.
and the scale is. So when I hear a progression like that, I know that the possible notes are, but I totally stay away from
Okay, doing.
the shape, the form, the theory, and whatever. I just think about what will be the note that will hit me in a way. And the first thing is building something over the third of a chord. But then is G. For example. And then going back, because the melody to be effective must be short, must be something that you're gonna remember, so something very singable. And one more thing about this, now that you pointed out, a chord progression is that I try to sing a melody in my mind. So when it comes that I hear a chord progression, and in the chord, usually 99% of the times within the chord there is a melody that I can hear. So as long as the melody and the chords are tonal, so part of a key, there's 99% of the times a melody in the chords and in chord movement. So I can hear. So I hear. So I hear that melody comes from the upper notes. So that's why probably I came out with it. Because I can hear this coming. So 99% of the times really try to pay attention to the upper notes of the triads of the chords you're going to play. Or so if the triads are the basic root notes, there must be a melody within those triads, because there always is a hidden melody within those chord notes.
Right.
Then it's a matter of putting them together and making it sound less basic as possible.
Right. So I mean, you obviously have a complete roadmap of where the playing in is, so you have the freedom to scramble the notes, go wherever you want to. You have the complete, power to do that kind of thing. And then when let's say you spell that melody, the first two passages, and then you're going into your lead, and maybe it's over the same progression. Maybe you haven't changed the key or anything, and you really want to kind of up it, right? It's the solo, it's the lead part. How are you thinking about through that progression more towards a fiery solo? Then are you also
for sure, if I have a strong melody already, and if the verse and the chorus are a strong melody, and I have to go with the solo thing, I probably try to not overplay or find something that it's too out of the box compared to the rest. So even the crazier, I think even the craziest thing I ever recorded has a sort of melody inside.
Yeah.
It's not just uber shred over without uber nonsense shred, as I used to call it.
Yeah, I never call you shred. I mean, it's just
it's something that I'm right at the border. I'm too melodic for shredder.
Yeah.
And I'm too much of a shredder for real melodic players. So I'm right there. And unfortunately, I never had a real position in the chain, in the musician chain. I'm too melodic for the shredders. so I'm too slow for the
Yeah.
shredders.
Yeah.
But although, or vice versa, I'm too fast for the
Yeah.
melodic players.
Yeah.
So I'm right there.
Yeah.
And even when I build a solo, it always has to have a strong melodic content.
So
So
what would you do? I mean, for that progression, if you're like, okay, now I've got a 32 or 16 bar thing I'm going to go after. Are you going to build from kind of what the blueprint that you kind of set up, but then take it a little bit higher? And
of course I'm gonna use
yeah,
gonna use more tools like
yeah,
bands, for example. So
uh-huh.
if I have this now, I'm gonna go like upper
Yeah,
neck.
yeah,
So I'm gonna play me. So I'm gonna maybe have some of the bluesy approach.
mm-hmm.
So using wide bands
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and maybe a wider vibrato,
yeah.
and then maybe some licks over this. I can have. So just thinking about
Yeah,
creating something that is different from the
yeah,
the, the, the original melody,
yeah,
which was like which now is stuck in my mind, but I'm trying to get more fire out of the solo
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Uh, so maybe finding licks that may work on all the chords.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like most bluesy players will have the all the usual lick like those. Maybe over this progression I will have. But just a small phrase. Just small things that I practice over and over
Yeah,
by listening to John Petrucci, for
yeah,
example, and those
sure, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Mixolydian kind of
yeah.
runs.
Well, like some of
Or
the things like I love when it's the four note pattern, descending, that kind of
yeah,
where
exactly,
it's
or
just
something
yeah,
more
yeah,
more kind of like
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah,
phrases like that with the alternating
yeah,
maybe are
yeah,
used to break. Well, I use this stuff or pre or like stuff like the usual blues or Nuno Bettinger
yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
Okay, here.
yeah,
Just to break when I'm there's usually a climax over a solo, right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Where you have your melodic content, and then for some reasons there's a break. There's a break of ideas. So I use these licks when I need to recharge my brain. So I have like a palette of licks like most guitar
Yeah,
players
yeah,
has.
yeah,
So when I have to recharge my melodic content, I just rely on licks to have a sort of build up,
mm-hmm,
and then freshen the mind, refreshen the mind, and have new melodic ideas. So over a lead, well, I have to say 99% when you hear one of my songs, the solo spot is pretty much 99% written out.
mm-hmm,
So and it's never improvised
mm-hmm.
for a reason. I think I'm a strong believer that when you improvise leads for pretty much all the guitar players that I know, when they improvise leads, you can tell they're improvising it because you rely more on phrases, licks, those huge bands. When you have to create, for me, the solo, it's like creating a song within the song. And there's no way, a singer going to a booth and recording lyrics just by improvising the lyrics, just by singing, random notes and making it, a full lyric content. And just like that, I think guitar players, when they write solos instead of improvising, there's something more, because you have more time, you have a better view of the song. So 99% all the leads, and I mean, in an instrumental song, there's a fine line between leads and other parts because everything is a lead.
Yeah.
So, but like the drummer part, that wasn't improvised. That was written out.
Yeah.
And was carefully crafted to make it fit between those sections.
Right. Yeah.
So, but I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is one thing that it's a different topic, but a question.
Okay.
You in your tool belt, you have this thing where I mean, you're tapping and then you're kind of doing this arpeggio thing, and those are all worked out, right? I mean, I'm gonna throw that thing in, and it's gonna be a new dimension or a new flair for what my solo is. Is that what the concept of what you're doing is? I mean, if you break that down, is that what that is?
Probably it just came from practicing those patterns in different part of the neck, and I was just I think. When I wrote that tapping lick, it was just the moment I was practicing those things, and I needed an exercise to, break like an average, a basic exercise over, and it came out with that phrase that eventually I liked it so much that I ended up, putting in.
Because you'll usually come up like you'll tap something, and then on the descend you'll do another shape on the way down or something. And
that was made on purpose. That was made on purpose because it's the same scale. So it's the major 7, D major 7. Just I wanted, that was a flashy thing because I could have done because originally it was just the exact same scale played twice.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make it flashier. It was, for some reason, it was maybe too easy for me. It was like maybe people won't understand that. It will say, it's just the basics. So let's make it more complicated.
Yeah.
It's this major 7 arpeggio played the original way. So, but here, So it was descending with the tapping once. So it's the exact same scale. So the exact same scale, just play the conventional way, the arpeggio shape. And then, the second arpeggio was built like that, but it was a whole exercise that I was writing down to remember it.
Yeah.
And it ended up being, the infamous tapping lick. So it's one of those things that happens once in your life when you're just messing around with something and it ends up being, the cool part of a song.
Yeah.
The one that, gives you the break.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no.
So it's funny, but that's how I work with leads. So when I build a solo, usually I improvise something and then I work by adding notes. So it just if I'm playing live, it's just a matter of set and forget. So just fire in the hole, and what happens. Right, yeah. When I'm writing something, it's more of a craft kind of work. So I just work on which notes works better in that spot. So it's really an intensive work when I write a song. That's why it takes 4 years for me to make a record. It took 4 years between the first two, and it's probably gonna take 4 or 5 years between the last one and the next one, because I really want everything and every note to count or to have a definite sound and vibe. So every solo is kind of 99%. There are some songs that were just improvised, like Never Forgive Me, the whole lead section, and Spray the Disease, the whole lead section. But that has the usual funk and blues vibe, and straight rock and roll, set the 4 and go. But songs like Andromeda or Still Hurts, Nothing Is Lost, Heartburn, The Forest, those songs where every note was put there because of a reason.
No, I love the stuff on the Argento. His album.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just like his all-time favorite. And some of these other things like I downloaded and I didn't know you played on, but it was I can't remember what it was X something. Just
Ego.
Yeah. But
Talking about that, I actually have since a lot of people are asking about improvising and which notes, and I choose which notes I choose for a set of chords or just a random key or whatever. And I have there's a song actually that pretty much explained that well, and it's Off Ego, which explains how I think about starting a lead or an improvisation or just solo or whatever. So the whole thing is based on two chords. I don't know if you can hear, but it's these two chords. So it's gonna be two beautiful chords: D flat major and E flat major with the D flat on bass. Yeah, it's just so just move the bar in.
Is that like it's like a Lydian thing? Is that a Lydian progression?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, and that's what I usually do when I start writing. If it's a Lydian thing, or if it's a Dorian thing, or a mixed Lydian, I point out the characteristic note of the mode, and I build the whole lead around that. So let's make it. This is the. I don't know if you can hear it. Can you hear it? Can you hear the guitar?
Yeah.
All right. So the first thing that my brain does is pointing out the characteristic Lydian note over that progression.
Yeah.
Because I know I can play this. But it's not gonna sound melodic at all.
Right.
So I'm gonna point out that note. So I start. So I based everything over that note. Okay. Over this note because that's my starting point and arrival point.
Yeah.
So pointing everything on the characteristic modal note of harmony, lets you play like endlessly, because the Legion I can't start and finish on this because it's a 4-degree. It's not conclusive at all. You need to go over here to make it over the chord. Because if I play this, it's extremely unstable.
Yeah.
You gotta go either here or here. So playing around the Lydian note of the chord will make the whole phrasing endless in a way. Because you're playing around, it's like playing over a 7th chord, major 7.
Right.
It never resolves. So you can go everywhere and make it. So that's another thing that actually helps me when I improvise. And if I catch the characteristic modal note of the chords, it's gonna be all over playing over.
And also the listener, I mean, it just brings you in because you're like, haven't figured it out yet. It just leads to the next line. What's he gonna say next? It doesn't resolve. So
Totally, that's how it works actually.
Yeah.
So you pick up node, which is the modal node, and you play around that. And if you want to resolve and finish your conversation playing wise, you just play a step beyond or a half step above the characteristic Lydian note in your set basically. So you can. You have all the notes, around that.
Yeah.
And I when I play over, I just point out that no model note, and you go over
Yeah,
and over,
that
and
that
that
back. Yeah, I was gonna say that backing track. So that's from the Ergo or the
yeah, it's I think it's the last song from the record. It's called
Oh,
Grooves in Fabula.
okay.
It's the one that goes, you know. I think the original lead where was something like so he just made the backing track for me from the record, but it was like was something like that, which had, you know, that those licks, uh, yeah, as that lead with these phrases. Yeah, it was that lead there, which
Mark,
at some point I
yeah,
did, how did I phrase
yeah.
that, which is more of a lick,
Mark,
but
would you ever make that public? That
no, the backing tracks now.
no, never. Okay.
No, actually, at some point he wanted to do some sort of, you know, backing tracks.
Yeah,
He's just too busy, you know, recording and mixing,
yeah,
and he usually is 99% of the times busy mixing other people's
yeah,
records.
yeah. Okay.
So, but and he wanted at some point making the backing track
Yeah, yeah,
thing.
uh-huh.
You just have to reopen all the sessions from
Yeah, yeah,
2007,
yeah.
which are long gone. I
You're
mean,
right.
all the
Yeah,
plugins he had
yeah.
are
That's
gone,
gone.
so it doesn't sound the same. It needs to be remixed
Yeah,
from the scratch.
okay,
So he just did that for me for
yeah,
clinics,
okay.
and
Now that would be a good thing. I mean, I could make my own backing track to that and work on that, and something to say starting point and see if I can incorporate different parts into something simple like that, but that has so many possibilities.
oh, for sure, you know, YouTube
Yeah,
is
yeah,
a good resource of
yeah, yeah,
whatever backing track
yeah,
you want to find out. You know,
right, yeah,
just point out you can even point out the chords.
yeah, yeah, yes,
Backing track in C minor, D minor, E
exactly,
minor.
yeah,
Find something, you know, that may help you.
yeah,
But
yeah,
that's just an example
yeah,
of
yeah,
how my brain
yeah,
works when I get, you know, a melody, a chord progression
mhm,
under the
yeah,
hood, and I want to
okay,
play over it.
yeah, yeah. Now,
I
Marco,
just
like, maybe for the last 5 minutes, I wanted to, if you have some tips on the alternate picking and syncing the hands up, and
sure.
and maybe a progression or a pattern I could work on, and then try to build it up. Something that is not just the standard chromatic thing, but something that maybe it's a little more interesting to play
Well, so, you
melodically.
know,
Yeah.
I have a few. The first one is like it's like I put in warm up um,
Hmm.
folder,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
it's basically an exercise,
Uh huh.
which starts as a chromatic stuff, but involves brain and
Yeah.
hands. So basically, the goal is to at some point in the four notes
Hmm.
per
Hmm.
string patterns, which you decide which one is going to be. So it can be, you decide which one is going to be. And at some point, you just play three notes
Hmm.
and you change fret, which means if I'm playing, so you basically invert the picking. So we'll have all the accent on the upper stroke.
Okay.
So what happens is but it doesn't have to be on pre-established points. You just have to decide it and change it, because I will give you a PDF
Okay.
with like a basic form of this
Okay.
exercise.
Okay.
You just have to make it your own, because if you learn it by memory, your brain is gonna memorize which part of the neck you're gonna change your
Hmm.
picking.
Hmm.
But it's gonna be something, you know, out of the box.